address this issue in further detail. I'm delighted that they have taken the time to be here, and I'm happy to yield so much time as he may use to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Franklin.
I appreciate my colleague from Louisiana giving me some time to talk about this vitally critical matter. Mr. Speaker, today I rise in support of our border agents who work tirelessly to defend our nation against the flow of deadly drugs crossing our southern border. Their job is made incredibly more difficult by the Biden administration's open border policies. I'm sometimes asked why, as a Floridian, I care so deeply about what is happening on our southern border. Whether it's criminals, terrorists, human traffickers, or drug smugglers, problems at the Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California borders quickly become problems for all Americans. Florida may be hundreds of miles from the border, but illegal drugs from there are flooding our communities. The Tampa Bay area, my home, has an overdose rate that is 50% higher than the national average. To put that figure in context, 30 people in the Tampa Bay area are dying every week from overdoses. Let that sink in. The lion's share of these overdoses are from fentanyl. This highly lethal drug, primarily manufactured in China and smuggled in by Mexican cartels, is many times stronger than heroin, morphine, and other opioids. As little as 2 milligrams, smaller than the tip of a pencil, which you can see right here in perspective relative to a penny, is often enough to kill an adult. Fentanyl overdoses are now the #1 killer of adults aged 18 to 45. This is a national tragedy. It's exasperating to see the hands of our agents tied as they try to stop this crisis because their own government stands in their way. As one frustrated border agent told his chief in a recently leaked video, "For evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing." Mr. Speaker, the Biden administration is doing worse than nothing. It is actively promoting an open border policy that allows dangerous drugs to flow into our communities. This administration has the blood of its citizens on its hands. For the safety and security of our nation, it must stop. And I yield back.
I thank you for that compelling message, my friend. And you're right, every state is a border state now, whether you're on the coast or whether you're up north or anywhere in the country, and Tennessee is no exception to that. I yield next to my good friend, Mr. Burchett.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. I appreciate the great work you've been doing on this for the last few weeks, and I look forward to working with you in the future. 6 days ago, Mr. Chairman, I spoke about the fentanyl crisis in this chamber. According to the trajectory of the CDC's most recent 12-month data on drug overdose death, over 1,600 Americans have died since that speech. 1,600. In reality, I'm afraid that number is actually a lot higher thanks to illegally trafficked fentanyl. Just last week, an unsuspecting high school student in Connecticut overdosed on marijuana laced with fentanyl. Thankfully, that student is all right, but sadly, there are many others who do not survive an overdose. A man called my office the other day. His son died, he was in the Carolinas, unsuspecting, took a street drug. It was laced with fentanyl. They said the fentanyl was still in his, the pill was still in his mouth. It was that strong. Our government needs to stop illegal fentanyl from entering the United States right now, Mr. Speaker. Republicans and Democrats must demand more action on this issue from our leaders. Here in the House, Speaker Pelosi controls the floor schedule and does not say much about illegal fentanyl trafficking. Down Pennsylvania Avenue at the White House, President Biden issued financial sanctions against foreign smugglers who bring drugs like fentanyl into our country. Mr. Speaker, that's a nice start, but I doubt these cartel thugs and bums will quit the drug trade just because they can't use an American bank. Earlier today, I delivered a letter to Speaker Pelosi requesting that she do everything in her power to stop fentanyl from entering our country. President Biden received a copy of that letter as well. I urge them to consider my Fentanyl Traffickers Elimination Act, which would sentence fentanyl traffickers to life in prison, as a possible solution to reducing the amount of fentanyl that flows across our borders. Politically, I have little in common with Speaker Pelosi and President Biden. I met President Biden after the prayer breakfast, and I told him that I don't agree with hardly anything he does, but I pray for him every day, and that's true. However, I believe all three of us agree more needs to be done to stop Americans from overdosing on illegal fentanyl. I think overwhelmingly majorities in our respective parties feel the same. The American people will be glad to see us put politics aside and do something to reduce the tragic fentanyl overdose deaths that have become too common in our communities. But unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, we spend most of our time up here, and as I've said before, these bridges and post offices aren't going to name themselves. We need to get back to the people's work, Mr. Speaker, and put an end to this tragedy. I yield the remainder of my time. As always, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your more than lackluster ability.
Thank you.